The first time Adrian Cross came to my apartment, he did not ask where my brother was. He asked how soon I could pretend to be his wife. The power went out 6 minutes after midnight. 1 second, the lamp beside my couch cast a weak yellow circle across the room. The next, everything disappeared. The refrigerator stopped humming. The digital clock above the kitchen sink went black. Even the radiator seemed to hold its breath. Outside, snow pressed against the windows in white sheets, swallowing the streetlights and turning my third-floor apartment into a dark box suspended over South Boston. I stood beside the kitchen table with my phone in one hand and my brother's final message playing through the speaker. "Emily, whatever happens, do not trust Adrian Cross." Nathan's voice sounded thin. Rushed. Nothing like the confident older brother who had spent most of my childhood convincing me he could fix anything with duct tape, bad jokes, and enough coffee. The recording ended with a scrape, a breath, and silence. I played it again. I had been playing it for 2 days. Nathan had vanished 48 hours earlier. He had not answered his phone. He had not appeared at the accounting office where he worked. He had not used his credit card or checked his email. The police had entered him into the missing person system, but they had found no evidence of an immediate emergency. To them, he was an adult who might have left voluntarily. To me, he was my only family. On the table beside me sat the remains of his ordinary life, a cracked phone charger, a grocery receipt, 2 quarters, and a black envelope I had found beneath my door that morning. There was no return address. No stamp. Just my name written in silver ink. Emily Carter. Inside was a photograph of Nathan leaving a downtown office building at 11:43 at night. A man in a dark coat stood behind him, his face turned away from the camera. Beneath the photograph, a sentence had been typed across a sheet of heavy paper. "He took something that belongs to us." There was no dollar amount. No direct threat. Somehow, that made it worse. I tried the light switch even though I knew the building had lost power. Nothing happened. My breathing sounded too loud in the dark. Then someone knocked 3 times. Not pounded. Not rattled the door. 3 calm, evenly spaced knocks. I froze with my thumb hovering over the emergency call button on my phone. The hallway was usually noisy even after midnight. Pipes groaned. Couples argued. Mrs. Landry across the hall watched game shows at a volume that could wake the dead. That night, there was nothing. The entire building seemed to have gone silent with the lights. 3 more knocks followed. My phone illuminated my face as a message appeared from an unknown number. "Open the door, Emily." I backed away. Whoever stood outside knew my name. More than that, he knew I was standing on the other side. "Who is it?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Adrian Cross." The name moved through me like cold water. Nathan had mentioned it only once before making the recording. 3 weeks earlier, he had come to my apartment after midnight wearing a suit that did not belong to him, and an expression I had never seen before. He had poured himself a glass of water, missed the rim twice, and asked whether I remembered where Mom kept her old music box. When I told him it was in my bedroom closet, relief had crossed his face. Then fear. I had asked who Adrian Cross was. Nathan had said, "A man who never needs to repeat himself." Now that man stood outside my door. "My brother is not here," I said. "I know." The answer came immediately. "Calm." "Certain." "Then leave." "I cannot do that." I tightened my grip on the phone. "Why not?" There was a pause. "Because Nathan gave them your name." A sound came from the stairwell. A man shifting his weight. Maybe more than one. I considered calling the police, but the storm had buried half the city beneath nearly a foot of snow. Even if officers reached me quickly, I did not know what I would say. A stranger was standing outside my door. A stranger my brother had warned me not to trust. "Who are they?" I asked. "Open the door, and I will explain." "You can explain from there." For the first time, something changed in his voice. Not anger. Something quieter. Approval, perhaps. Your brother said you were careful. My brother says many things. Not anymore. The words landed hard. I stopped breathing. Is he alive? Silence filled the hallway. Too much of it. Mr. Cross, is my brother alive? Open the door. Answer me. Another pause. Then he said, he was alive the last time my people saw him. It was not comfort. It was not enough. But it was the first real information anyone had given me in 2 days. I unlocked the deadbolt but kept the chain fastened. The door opened 3 inches. Cold air slipped through the gap, carrying the clean smell of snow and something darker. Leather, cedar, expensive cologne. Adrian Cross stood beneath the dead emergency light as if darkness belonged to him. He was taller than I had expected, broad-shouldered beneath a charcoal overcoat dusted with snow. His black hair was swept back from a face that looked too composed for midnight and too controlled for a man who had come to collect a debt. Behind him stood another man in a navy coat, older and watchful, with his hands visible at his sides. Neither man moved toward the door. Adrian's gray eyes found mine through the narrow opening. They were steady. Not cruel. That unsettled me more than cruelty would have. Cruel men were easy to understand. You have 60 seconds, I said. Then I called the police. His gaze dropped to the chain and returned to my face. Your brother stole a list from an organization connected to my family. A list of what? Names. That sounds like your problem. It became yours when he told Richard Kane that you had the key. I stared at him. I do not know anyone named Richard Kane. He knows you. Adrian reached slowly into his coat. I tightened my hold on the door, but he only removed a photograph and held it where I could see it. It showed me leaving the Boston Athenaeum 6 months earlier, carrying my canvas work bag beneath one arm. The date was printed in the corner. Someone had circled the small blue enamel music box charm attached to my key ring. My stomach dropped. Why do you have that? Because Kane has the same photograph. You have been following me. I have been watching the people who were following you. You expect me to think. You. No. His answer was immediate. I expect you to survive long enough to hate me properly. Somewhere below us, a car door closed. Adrian glanced toward the stairs, and the man behind him touched 2 fingers to the earpiece beneath his collar. No one raised a voice. No one hurried. But the air changed. Every instinct in my body told me these men were accustomed to danger and had already measured every exit. Adrian looked back at me. Your brother took information that could expose powerful people. Kane believes your mother concealed the means to unlock it before she died. My mother was a certified public accountant. Your mother worked for the Cross Foundation. I almost laughed. The sound caught in my throat. That is impossible. It is why Nathan came to me. It is why he ran. And it is why you cannot safely remain here tonight. I thought of the music box in my closet. Blue enamel. Tiny brass feet. A melody my mother used to play when storms shook the windows. Nathan had asked about it 3 weeks earlier. Now Adrian Cross stood outside my apartment holding a photograph taken months before my brother disappeared. What do you want from me? I asked. Adrian reached into his coat again. This time, he removed a small black box. He opened it with one hand. A simple diamond ring caught the pale glow from my phone. My first reaction was disbelief. My second was fear. I need the members of my family council to believe you are my wife, he said. Then hire more security. Security can be bought or dismissed. My name creates a boundary Kane cannot cross without revealing his intentions. I stared at the ring, then at him. You came to my apartment during a blizzard because my brother owes you a debt, and your solution is to ask me to pretend to marry you? No. His voice dropped, quiet enough that I had to lean closer to hear it. I came because the debt was never money. He closed the box and slipped it through the narrow gap in the door. It landed softly in my palm. Nathan told them you had the key, Emily. I need them to believe you have already given it to me. The ring felt heavier than something that small had any right to feel. I stared at it in my palm while Snow whispered against the hallway window behind Adrian. You cannot be serious. I rarely travel in weather like this to make jokes. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have time to give you in this hallway. His gaze shifted toward the stairwell again. The older man behind him remained still, but something in his posture tightened. I looked down at the black box. The diamond was not enormous or theatrical. It was simple, clear, and set in a narrow platinum band. That made it worse. A ridiculous ring would have felt like a costume. This looked real. You expect me to put this on and leave with you? I expect you to hear the terms before you decide. You already said people are watching me. They are. Then I do not have much of a choice. His eyes returned to mine. You always have a choice. I almost laughed. You came here with men outside my apartment. 2 men. Both are here to secure the hallway. That sounds different only because you said it calmly. For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. It was the recognition of a fair point. My car is downstairs, he said. Your building has no power, the storm is worsening, and Richard Kane knows this address. You can remain here and wait for the police to reach you through 11 inches of snow, or you can come to a secure location and listen to my proposal. I looked at the dead lamp, the thin lock on my door, and Nathan's phone on the table behind me. Every reasonable part of my mind told me not to go anywhere with Adrian Cross. Every frightened part reminded me that my brother had disappeared after saying his name. If I go with you, I bring Nathan's phone. Of course. And the music box. Something changed in his face. Barely. A pause no longer than a heartbeat. But I saw it. So that is what this is really about, I said. It may be connected. You knew I had it. I suspected. You had me followed for 6 months because you suspected I owned a music box. I had someone watching the people who were watching you. That sentence is not as comforting as you think it is. It was not intended to be comforting. I studied him through the narrow opening. Step back. He did. No argument. I closed the door, removed the chain, and opened it fully. Cold air swept into the apartment. Adrian remained in the hallway until I moved aside. He did not cross the threshold on his own. I noticed that. I hated that I noticed it. 5 minutes, I said. I need a coat and my things. Take 10. I said 5. This time, he did smile, small and brief. 5 then. The older man introduced himself as Mason Grant. His voice was polite and his eyes alert. He checked the windows while I packed a sweater, jeans, toiletries, Nathan's phone, and the blue music box wrapped in a dish towel. I did not tell them that the box had been locked for years. I did not tell them that its small brass key had disappeared the week my mother died. Some facts still belonged to me. Downstairs, a black sport utility vehicle waited at the curb with its engine running. The street had nearly vanished beneath the snow. Adrian opened the rear door but did not touch me. I climbed in, keeping my bag on my lap. Mason took the front passenger seat. Adrian sat beside me, leaving enough space between us to make the distance feel deliberate. The drive took 20 minutes. No one spoke until we reached a stone townhouse on Beacon Hill with warm lights behind tall windows. It was elegant without being loud. Nothing glittered. Nothing begged to be admired. Inside, the air smelled like cedar and coffee. A fire burned behind glass in the living room. Adrian removed his coat and placed it over a chair. His suit was dark, perfectly fitted, and somehow less intimidating than the overcoat. He gestured toward a long table where a folder waited beside 2 untouched cups. You prepared the paperwork before you came, I said. Yes. So you knew I would agree? No. I knew what I was willing to offer. I sat but did not touch the coffee. Adrian took the chair across from me. My original proposal is 6 months, he said. You would attend public and private events with me. You would remain at one of my residences whenever there was a credible threat. In public, you would be introduced as my fiancé. Within the family council, you would be recognized as my wife under the Cross family covenant. No legal marriage record would be created, and no government document would be falsified. Your family recognizes a marriage without a license? The covenant is an internal declaration of household alliance. It has no standing outside the family trust, but it affects voting rights inside the council. That sounds convenient. My grandfather designed it to be convenient for men like him, and inconvenient for everyone else. Usually. He pushed the folder toward me. The Cross Foundation Gala is tomorrow evening. My father's memorial is in 12 days. The scheduled council review is 9 days after that. If Kane believes you are protected by the covenant, he will move before the review. And when he does, he exposes himself. You are using me as bait. Adrian did not soften the truth. Yes. I leaned back. At least you admit it. I will not insult you with a lie. You already concealed my mother's connection to your family. I withheld it until I knew what Nathan had told you. That is a polished way to say you lied. His jaw tightened. Then call it a lie. Silence stretched between us. He did not defend himself. That surprised me more than an excuse would have. I opened the folder. The agreement was 12 pages long. Legal language, confidentiality, security provisions, public appearances. A clause promising that Nathan would not be harmed by anyone acting under Adrian's authority. I read it twice. Then I took the pen beside the folder and drew a line through 6 months. What are you doing? Adrian asked. Correcting your imagination. I wrote 21 days in the margin. You need me through the scheduled council review. You are not borrowing half a year of my life. His gaze moved from my handwriting to my face. 21 days may be enough. Then 21 days is what you get. I added 4 conditions beneath the signature line. You tell me everything related to my family whenever I ask. You do not use innocent people to pressure anyone. If Nathan committed a crime, he goes to the authorities. There will be no private punishment, and no disappearance. Adrian read each sentence. And the 4th condition? I may leave whenever I choose. His eyes lifted. Even if leaving places you in danger? Especially then. I cannot protect you if you walk away. Protection is not the same as permission. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he took the pen and signed beneath my conditions. Agreed. I looked at his signature, bold and controlled. That was too easy. You expected a fight. Men like you often confuse control with strength. And women like you? We learn how to survive men who do. The fire clicked softly behind the glass. Adrian looked at me as though I had said something he intended to remember. Then he slid the ring box across the table. You will need to wear it tomorrow. I opened it again. When I lifted the ring, the velvet beneath it shifted. A tiny metal catch released with a soft click. The base opened like a hidden drawer. Inside lay a narrow strip of paper, yellowed at the edges. My hands went cold before I unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable. My mother's. I had seen it on birthday cards, grocery lists, and the note she placed in my lunchbox on the morning she died. The message read, If this reaches Emily, trust a man who leaves the door open. The song is the key. I read it twice. Then a 3rd time. Where did you get this? My voice barely carried across the table. Adrian looked at the note, and for the first time since he arrived, the control in his face broke. Not much. Just enough for grief to show through. Your mother gave it to mine 12 years ago, he said. My mother sealed it in the Cross family vault with the ring and instructions that it should be opened if either of Margaret Carter's children became a target. Why did you open it now? Nathan came to me 6 weeks ago asking about foundation accounts your mother had audited. That was when I realized Kane had begun searching again. I looked down at the message. My mother expected this. She hoped it would never happen. She prepared for the possibility that it might. And she believed you would stop Kane? Adrian's gray eyes met mine. No, Emily. She believed you would finish what she started. The idea that my mother had prepared a message for me 12 years earlier felt impossible. I looked from the note to Adrian, waiting for him to explain how a dead woman could have planned my future so precisely. He folded his hands on the table. She did not know exactly when this would happen. She knew Richard Kane would keep searching. Searching for what? Proof that he used the Cross Foundation to move money through false charities and purchase influence through third parties. And the music box contains that proof? It may contain the information needed to locate it. I glanced toward my overnight bag on the floor. The blue enamel box was wrapped in a dish towel between a sweater and Nathan's abandoned phone. Suddenly it felt less like a childhood keepsake and more like a locked room I had been carrying for years. Why did no one tell me? Because your mother wanted you outside this world. That plan seems to have failed. Adrian accepted the accusation without looking away. Yes. The answer was so simple that it interrupted my anger for half a second. What happens tomorrow? I asked. You attend the foundation gala with me. As your wife. Inside the family, yes. To reporters and donors, you will be introduced as my fiancé. We will say the covenant ceremony was private and the civil wedding will take place after the council review. That is very specific. Specific stories survive questions. And vague ones collapse? Usually before dessert. I should not have found that funny. I looked down before he could see the smile trying to escape. By 8 the next morning, the storm had moved east, leaving Boston beneath 12 inches of snow and a sky as clear as polished glass. A woman named Helen arrived with garment bags, shoes, and the expression of someone who had already been instructed not to accept an easy refusal. I rejected the first 3 dresses because they looked like costumes designed for a woman who had never carried groceries up 3 flights of stairs. The 4th was dark blue, simple at the shoulders, and modest enough that I still recognized myself in the mirror. That one? I said. Helen nodded with visible relief. The gala was not until evening, which gave me several hours to examine the music box. I turned the brass handle. The mechanism resisted, released one broken note, and stopped. I did not force it. Old objects remembered every careless hand that touched them. At the Athenaeum, my job was to preserve what remained, not destroy it in the name of curiosity. I photographed the underside and noticed a faint series of scratches beside the maker's mark. They might have been numbers. They might have been ordinary wear. I kept the photographs to myself. Adrian was waiting downstairs when I finished dressing. He wore a black tuxedo and the same controlled expression he had brought to my apartment. His gaze moved over the dress, then settled on my face. You look comfortable. That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said about formal wear. It was intended as a compliment. I know. He held out the ring. I had left it on the table after finding my mother's note. For a moment neither of us moved. Then I took it and slid it onto my finger myself. Something shifted in Adrian's eyes. Approval again. Or respect. We should establish the story, he said during the drive. Where did we meet? At the library. Too public. Someone could check. People meet at libraries without filing paperwork. Mason made a sound from the front seat that was suspiciously close to a laugh. Adrian ignored him. How did I propose? Badly. Emily. You arrived after midnight with a contract and a ring. I am drawing from experience. He turned toward the window, but I saw the brief curve of his mouth reflected in the glass. The gala filled the grand ballroom of a Back Bay hotel with chandeliers, white flowers, and enough polished silver to reflect every lie in the room. Foundation photographers took pictures when Adrian and I entered. A small group of business reporters waited behind a velvet barrier, but Mason had already made it clear that questions would be limited. Adrian's hand hovered near the center of my back without touching me. He waited. I gave the smallest nod. Only then did his palm settle lightly against the fabric. The gesture lasted 3 seconds, but I understood what he was doing. He was showing the room that we belonged together while proving to me that he remembered the rules. People approached in waves. Donors. Attorneys. Business owners. Men who shook Adrian's hand with confidence and watched his eyes for permission to breathe. Women complimented my ring, my dress, and my luck. I smiled until my cheeks hurt. Then Victoria Hayes appeared. She wore silver and looked as though she had been raised beneath chandeliers exactly like those. "Adrian," she said, kissing the air beside his cheek, "you have been keeping secrets. Only from people who mistake curiosity for entitlement." Her smile tightened. Then she looked at me. "Emily Carter, the paper conservator from the Athenaeum. You researched me. Boston is a small city when the right people ask questions. That must make privacy expensive." Her eyes sharpened. Adrian remained silent beside me. He could have interrupted. He did not. Victoria lifted her champagne glass. "Tell me how you met." Adrian has never been sentimental enough to explain. The people around us quieted without appearing to do so. This was not a conversation. It was a test. I looked at Adrian. He gave me nothing. No warning. No rescue. Strangely, that steadied me. "He came to the library looking for something valuable," I said. "That sounds like Adrian." Victoria smiled. "Did he find it?" "Not at first. He was searching in the wrong section." A few people laughed softly. Adrian's expression remained composed, but his eyes warmed. "And you corrected him?" Victoria asked. "I told him money could buy a rare book, but it could not teach him how to understand one." The laughter grew. Even Mason looked down to conceal his reaction. Victoria did not. "And that made him fall in love?" "No. That made him return the next day with coffee and fewer assumptions." Adrian finally spoke. "She is leaving out the part where the coffee was terrible." "It was terrible," I agreed. "But he listened. That mattered more." The answer changed the air. It was not dramatic. It was believable. More important, it gave Adrian a version of himself the room had not expected. A man who listened. Victoria studied us, then raised her glass. "How touching!" She walked away before her voice could reveal anything else. Adrian leaned closer, careful not to crowd me. "Fewer assumptions? You needed character development. Apparently I still do. You are making progress." Later, while Adrian spoke with donors, I wandered into a quieter gallery lined with photographs from the Foundation's early years. One image stopped me. Two women stood beside a hospital fundraiser table, younger by decades. One was Adrian's mother. I recognized her from portraits in the townhouse. The other was mine. My mother was smiling, one hand resting on a blue music box. The same music box I had left secured in Adrian's study. Adrian found me staring at the photograph. "You knew," I said. "I knew who she was." "You knew she worked with your family." "Yes." "You knew about the box." "I knew it might lead to what Kane wanted." I turned toward him. The music from the ballroom sounded distant, softened by the closed doors. "So this was never only about protecting me." Adrian did not answer quickly enough. That was answer enough. "You needed me nearby because you believed I could open it. I needed Kane to believe you already had. That is not the same thing. No, you chose me because my dead mother could still destroy your enemies." His face remained still, but his silence lost its calm. "At first," he said, "the honesty hurt more than denial." "And now?" I asked. Adrian looked at the photograph, then back at me. "Now I am beginning to understand why she trusted you." Trust is a strange thing. It can take years to build and one honest sentence to break. Adrian did not try to stop me when I walked away from the photograph. That almost made me angrier. I crossed the ballroom with my shoulders straight, smiling at strangers because humiliation looked different when you wore diamonds. The moment we returned to the townhouse, I removed the ring and placed it on the entry table. "The arrangement is over." Mason looked from me to Adrian, then quietly left the room. Adrian remained near the door. You signed for 21 days. I also wrote that I could leave whenever I chose. You did. Then open the gate. His eyes held mine. Richard knows where you live. That is no longer your decision. I know. The answer stopped me. I had expected an argument. A command. Perhaps another carefully worded reason why my freedom was inconvenient. Instead, Adrian reached into his pocket and placed a set of car keys beside the ring. The roads are clear enough. The car has winter tires, a full tank, and an emergency kit in the trunk. You are letting me leave. You asked me to open the gate. That has never stopped you from doing what you wanted before. I am trying to understand the difference between protecting someone and making choices for them. His voice was quiet. Almost tired. Apparently, I am making progress. I hated that he remembered my words from the gala. I hated even more that part of me believed him. I went upstairs and packed my bag. The blue music box sat on the bed beneath the soft glow of a reading lamp. I picked it up and turned the tiny brass handle. Nothing happened. It had not played since I was 15, but I could still hear the melody in memory. My mother humming near the kitchen window. Nathan tapping the table offbeat. A life before secrets. Before Adrian Cross. I wrapped the box in my sweater and carried it downstairs. Adrian was waiting beside the open front door. He had put on his overcoat, but he made no move to follow me. Mason can drive behind you, he said. No, he will stay at least 2 car lengths back. No. His jaw tightened, then relaxed. All right. Outside, the snowbanks rose nearly 3 feet along the sidewalk. The city had begun moving again, but Beacon Hill still felt unusually quiet. Street lamps reflected against the wet pavement. Adrian walked me to the car and opened the driver's door. There is a second route programmed into the navigation system, he said. Use it if the same vehicle remains behind you for more than 5 blocks. You make ordinary life sound exhausting. Ordinary life has always seemed complicated from where I stand. I placed my bag on the passenger seat. Goodbye, Adrian. His expression did not change, but his hand tightened around the edge of the door. Goodbye, Emily. I started the engine. The iron gate opened. Slowly at the end of the driveway. For 1 second, freedom was 20 yards away. Then headlights appeared from the street. A dark sedan accelerated toward the opening before the gate had fully cleared. It swerved across the mouth of the driveway, forcing my car against the inner curb. The side mirror struck a stone post and shattered. Adrian opened my door and guided me quickly behind the low wall beside the drive. Mason called for the security team from the steps. The sedan paused only a moment. When a cross-security vehicle turned the corner, it reversed and disappeared down the hill. Silence returned so suddenly that I could hear snow melt dripping from the roof. Are you hurt? Adrian asked. I am fine. His hand hovered near my shoulder without touching me. He looked over my face, my arms, and my coat, searching for an injury I had not yet felt. Adrian. He finally met my eyes. A narrow tear marked the sleeve of his coat. A fragment from the broken mirror had cut through the fabric and left a shallow line along his forearm. Your arm. It is minor. You are bleeding. Barely. That is still not nothing. Mason reached us with 2 security officers. He spoke quietly into his phone while Adrian led me back inside. This time, I did not argue. In the library, I found a first aid kit in a cabinet, while Adrian removed his coat. The cut was shallow, but the edge of his white cuff had turned red. I cleaned it with antiseptic. He sat perfectly still. You knew something might happen, I said. I knew Kane might have someone observing the gate. I did not expect a driver to rush the entrance. And you still let me leave. You told me to. You could have lied about the roads. You could have disabled the car. Yes. Why did you not? Adrian watched my hands as I wrapped gauze around his arm. Because the moment I lock a door to keep you safe, I become the kind of man your mother was trying to expose. I stopped. The room seemed to narrow around us. You pulled me out of the car. You did not have time to choose in that moment. And now? Now you do. I secured the bandage and stepped back. He did not reach for me. He did not ask me to stay. He simply waited. Power had always surrounded Adrian like a second shadow, but sitting there with his sleeve rolled up and his future resting in my answer, he looked less like a man who ruled people and more like one who had never learned how to need them. I looked toward the entry hall, where my keys still lay beside the ring. I am staying tonight, I said. Not because you ordered me to. Not because of the contract. Then why? Because someone tried to frighten my mother into silence, and now they are trying the same thing with me. Adrian stood. Emily, if you remain here, Cain will continue searching for you. Then he can find me standing beside the truth. Something softened in Adrian's face. Not victory. Relief. Your room is still ready. A separate room. I remember the agreement. Tomorrow, you tell me everything. Everything I know. Before I could answer, Mason appeared in the library doorway. 2 members of the security team stood behind him with a man in a gray coat between them. They had searched him at the rear entrance, and confirmed his identity before bringing him inside. His hair was longer than I remembered. His face looked thinner. But I would have known him anywhere. Nathan. My brother's eyes found mine. Relief crossed his face, followed by fear when he saw Adrian. Emily, step away from him. I could not move. Nathan looked at the bandage around Adrian's arm, then at the ring on the entry table. He told you he was protecting you, did he not? Where have you been? Trying to stay alive long enough to warn you. Adrian's voice turned cold. Be careful with your next words. Nathan ignored him. He reached slowly into his coat, but Mason removed the small digital recorder before he could activate it, and placed it on the table. Nathan looked at me. I found that in Mom's files. Adrian's people were watching our family before she died. Mason pressed the playback button. Adrian's recorded voice filled the room. Keep eyes on Margaret Carter. Do not let her leave the city with that box. Nathan stopped the recording and looked straight at me. He did not save you tonight, Emily. He was making sure his evidence stayed alive. The recording ended, but Adrian's voice remained in the room like smoke after a fire. I looked at him, waiting for a denial. He gave me none. Is it authentic? I asked. The voice is mine. Nathan exhaled as though the answer proved everything. There. You heard him. Adrian did not look at my brother. His attention remained on me. The order was given 3 weeks before your mother died. You told your people not to let her leave the city. The sentence has been cut. How convenient. Mason can retrieve the complete security archive. Do it, I said. Mason left without waiting for Adrian's permission. Nathan stepped closer. Do not let him bury you beneath explanations, Emily. He takes one sentence and wraps it in 10 better ones until you forget what you heard. I studied my brother's face. He looked exhausted. His eyes were red at the edges, and a bruise-colored shadow lay beneath one cheek, though I could not tell whether it came from an injury or days without sleep. For most of my life, Nathan had been the person I believed before anyone else. He had packed my lunches after Mom died. He had attended parent conferences when he was barely old enough to sign the forms. He had taught me to change a tire in a grocery store parking lot because he said no Carter should ever wait helplessly beside a broken car. Trusting him had once been as automatic as breathing. Now every breath felt like a decision. Mason returned carrying a tablet. The original file was stored in the private security archive, he said. The time stamp and file signature matched the date Mr. Carter provided. He played the complete recording. Adrian's younger voice spoke first. Keep eyes on Margaret Carter. Do not let her leave the city with that box until the safe route is clear. Cain has people watching South Station and the airport. If she refuses the safe house, leave her an open route west and make certain no one follows. Another voice acknowledged the order. The recording continued for almost a minute, detailing a plan to move my mother and both her children to a protected location. Nathan's version had removed everything after the first sentence. I looked at him. Where? Did you get the edited copy? It was in Mom's files. Which files? A storage unit in Quincy. Why would Mom keep an edited recording that made her protector sound like her enemy? Maybe she did not trust him. Adrian spoke quietly. Or perhaps Kane gave Nathan the clip. Nathan turned on him. You do not get to lecture me about family. Then explain why Kane knew Emily had the box. The room went still. Nathan looked at me. I never told him. He had her photographed 6 months ago. Adrian said. That was the same month you began withdrawing funds from accounts controlled by companies connected to Kane. Those accounts were evidence. Then why did you transfer the funds through 3 personal accounts? To keep Kane from using the money. Adrian's expression did not change, but I could feel the pressure building beneath his silence. I stepped between them before either man could turn the room into another contest of authority. Enough. Both stopped. That frightened me in different ways. I picked up the recorder. Tell me about the storage unit. Nathan rubbed both hands over his face. The management company contacted me after the estate account stopped paying the fee. Mom had opened the unit under a business trust. The trust was finally closed last year, and the automatic payments ended. That explanation was possible. It was also the first answer he had given that contained enough detail to be checked. Why did you not tell me? I was protecting you. Adrian's voice remained quiet. That phrase is becoming very convenient tonight. Nathan ignored him. The unit held foundation ledgers, names, account numbers, and the recording. I moved everything before Kane could find it. Where? I asked. His silence answered before he did. Somewhere secure. Secure from Kane or secure for him? Emily, please. You asked me to trust you. Give me something real. Nathan looked toward my bag. His gaze remained there 1 second too long. Adrian noticed. So did I. I carried the music box to the table and set it between us. Is this what you want? Nathan stared at it. It belonged to Mom. That was not my question. There is a brass key inside it, he said. It opens a safe deposit box at Commonwealth Federal. My heartbeat slowed instead of quickening. The music box did not contain the key. Mom had worn the key on a chain beneath her blouse. After she died, I found the empty chain in her jewelry drawer. Nathan had helped me search the house for the missing key. Which branch? I asked. Downtown Crossing. What is inside the box? The second half of Mom's records. And you need the key? We need it. He reached toward the music box. I placed my hand over it. Tomorrow morning, I will take the box to the restoration laboratory at the Athenaeum. The mechanism is too fragile to force. Nathan's shoulders relaxed so slightly that he probably thought no one saw. That makes sense. Adrian looked at me, and I saw the exact moment he understood. The restoration laboratory had been closed for repairs for 2 weeks. I had mentioned it during our drive to the gala. Nathan did not know that. You should stay here tonight, Nathan said. I will meet you at the library at 9. No, I replied. Remain here. We will go together. His hesitation lasted less than a second. All right. Mason escorted him to a guest suite on the 2nd floor. He had searched Nathan for weapons at the entrance, but had deliberately left him with his telephone after catching my signal. If Nathan intended to pass my false location to Kane, I wanted him to believe he still had the opportunity. The moment the guest room door closed, I turned to Adrian. Do not say it. I was not going to. He lied about the key. You are certain? Mom wore it around her neck. It disappeared after she died. Nathan helped me search for it. Adrian looked toward the ceiling. Then he knows it was never inside the box. He wanted me to reveal where I would take it. I called the Athenaeum's overnight security desk. A guard named Paul answered on the 4th ring. I gave him a false warning about a possible plumbing problem in the restoration area and asked him to contact me if anyone appeared claiming to be maintenance staff. Mason positioned one of his security officers near the employee entrance, far enough away not to interfere. 2 hours later, Paul called back. 2 men had appeared with maintenance credentials and asked specifically for access to the closed restoration laboratory. They left when Paul requested identification and informed them that city inspectors were on the way. I ended the call and stared toward Nathan's guest room. My brother had carried Kane's message into Adrian's house. Then he had carried mine back out. He gave them the location, I whispered. Adrian stood beside the cold fireplace, his bandaged arm resting at his side. Yes. He knew they were watching him. Yes. And he still used me. My voice broke on the last word, but I refused to let the tears fall. Adrian moved 1 step closer, then stopped, leaving the rest of the distance for me to decide. What do you want to do? He asked. Not what should be done. Not what he had already ordered. What did I want? I looked at the music box, the ring, and the staircase leading to the room where my brother waited beneath a roof he had entered with a lie. I want to confront him, I said. Alone? With you close enough to hear, but not close enough to answer for me. Adrian nodded. Nathan did not deny the call when I told him about the men at the library. He tried to call it a precaution. Then a misunderstanding. Finally, he sat on the edge of the guest room bed and covered his face with both hands. Kane promised to clear the money transfers and get me out of the country, he said. He told me Adrian would blame me for everything Mom had found. So you gave him my name. I thought the box was empty. I thought he would frighten you, search the apartment, and leave. You allowed a man you feared to come after your sister. Nathan's eyes filled with shame. I was scared. So was I. I placed his telephone on the table between us. You have one chance to tell the truth in a way that matters. Nathan looked toward the open door, where Adrian waited in the hall without entering. What do you want me to do? Call Kane. Tell him I found the key. Tell him I will bring the music box to an emergency council meeting tomorrow night. The council is not scheduled for 3 weeks. Kane can invoke an emergency review if he believes Adrian has concealed evidence affecting the trust. Nathan understood. You want him in the room. I want him where he cannot hide behind you. Nathan agreed to make the call. Federal investigators were already reviewing the foundation records Adrian's attorneys had preserved, but they needed a clearer connection between Kane, the stolen funds, and the effort to obtain my mother's evidence. Nathan consented to the recording before he dialed. Kane answered on the second ring. Nathan told him I had found the brass key and agreed to bring the box before the council. Richard's voice became almost warm. Do that, and your debt disappears. Your mother should have surrendered the records 12 years ago. Perhaps her daughter will prove more practical. Nathan closed his eyes. And Emily? He asked. Once the box is in my hands, she will no longer matter. The call ended. No one spoke for several seconds. I picked up the ring and slid it back onto my finger. You said I was the bait, I told Adrian. Now I decide where the hook goes. By sunrise, the plan belonged to me. Adrian did not rewrite it. He did not improve it. He listened while I explained every step, and when I finished, he asked only one question. Are you certain? I looked at the ring on my finger, the music box on the table, and Nathan sitting silently near the window. No, I said. Certainty is a luxury men like Richard Kane used to control people like me. Kane invoked the emergency council review before noon. The meeting was scheduled for that evening at the oldest Cross property in Boston, a granite mansion overlooking the harbor. The regular review would still take place at the end of the 21 days, but the emergency session gave Kane the opportunity he believed he wanted. The snow had stopped, yet the wind came hard off the water, pushing against the mansion windows with a low, steady moan. Inside, the house glowed with warm light and cold attention. 12 council members sat around a long walnut table. Victoria Hayes stood near the fireplace in silver silk, composed enough to make suspicion look elegant. Richard Kane sat at the far end, silver-haired, calm, and smiling like a man who had never been forced to answer for anything. Nathan entered with Mason and 2 attorneys. He wore a dark suit and the expression of someone who had finally realized that fear did not erase responsibility. When he saw the music box in my hands, he gave the smallest nod. To everyone else, it looked like relief. Richard interpreted it exactly as we had hoped. Adrian took his place at the head of the table, but I did not sit beside him. I remained standing. Every face turned toward me. Richard folded his hands. "This is a private family matter. Then you should not have involved mine." His smile did not move. "Adrian has filled your head with stories." "No. My mother left records." That changed the room. Not loudly. A shift in posture. A glance between 2 men near the windows. Victoria lowered her glass. I placed the music box in the center of the table. Margaret Carter divided the information needed to locate those records. One part was placed with a ring. The other was connected to this box. Richard looked at Adrian. "You are allowing this performance?" Adrian's voice was calm. "She does not require my permission." For the first time, Richard's smile weakened. Nathan stepped closer to the table, continuing the role we had agreed upon. "Emily, give me the box. We can leave." "Where would we go?" I asked. "Somewhere safe." "You said that before?" I looked at him. "You also said the brass key was inside." Color left his face, partly real and partly performance. "It was supposed to be." "No. Mom wore it around her neck. You helped me search for it after the funeral." Silence deepened around us. Nathan glanced toward Richard. It was quick, but everyone saw it. Richard leaned back. "Family grief often distorts memory. Then let us use something clearer than memory." Mason connected a tablet to the screen behind Adrian. First, he displayed authenticated foundation transfers routed through companies controlled by Richard Kane. Then he showed the transfers into the 3 accounts Nathan had used. Dates, amounts, account owners, and digital signatures appeared in a clean sequence. Adrian's attorneys had already provided copies to federal investigators. Richard did not look at the screen. "Financial records can be interpreted many ways." "Then perhaps your own words will help," I said. Nathan's recorded call played through the room. Richard's voice promised to erase his debt. It referred to the records my mother should have surrendered 12 years earlier. It declared that I would no longer matter once the box was delivered. Nathan had consented to the recording, and investigators had received the original file directly from the secured system. No one spoke until it ended. Richard's face had gone still. "You arranged this," he said to Adrian. "No," Adrian replied. "Emily did." Richard's anger shifted toward me. "You do not understand the world you have entered." "I understand it perfectly." I placed both hands on the table. "It is a world where powerful men call manipulation strategy, call silence loyalty, and call fear respect." My voice shook once. I continued. "My mother understood it too. That is why she built a trail that would survive her." Richard's gaze dropped to the music box. "Open it. There are no documents inside." Nathan stared at it as though he had not expected that part. I turned the box over and pointed to the faint scratches beside the maker's mark. They were not random damage. When I enlarged the photographs I had taken that morning, I recognized a pattern used in archival cataloging: a branch code, a box number, and a sequence corresponding to the first notes of the melody. Adrian's mother had kept the missing brass key in the sealed cross vault beside my mother's letter. Together, the code and key opened the safe deposit box at Commonwealth Federal. Adrian's attorneys had accessed it that afternoon under the authority of my mother's estate. Inside were original ledgers, signed correspondence, and copies of transfer instructions connecting Kane to the Foundation accounts. The evidence had already been delivered to federal investigators. The music box was never the evidence. It was the map. Richard stood. "You brought federal authorities into this house." Adrian rose slowly. The room fell silent around him. I would once have handled this differently. He looked at me, then back at Richard. Emily asked me not to. That was the moment everything changed. Not because Richard had been exposed. Not because Nathan had confessed. Because Adrian Cross, a man who had built his life on control, chose to surrender it when it mattered. Federal agents entered with warrants based on the financial records, Nathan's cooperation, and the recorded call. There was no spectacle. No shouting. Richard was escorted from the mansion with his attorney. Nathan went with investigators voluntarily. He stopped beside me at the door. I thought I was protecting us. He whispered. No, I said. You were protecting the version of yourself that never had to admit what you did. His eyes filled with regret, but I could not carry it for him. Tell them everything, I said. That is the only honest thing you have left. For the remaining 19 days of our agreement, I stayed in the Beacon Hill townhouse while the investigation expanded. Those days were quieter than the first two, but they mattered more. Adrian told me the truth even when it made him look weak. He showed me the complete record surrounding my mother's final weeks. He admitted that his people had failed to move her before the car accident that took her life. He did not ask me to forgive that failure. He did not buy the Athenaeum, replace my apartment, or solve problems I had not given him permission to touch. Instead, he drove me to work when security concerns made the subway unsafe. He waited in the reading room with coffee from the small shop I liked and learned, after 3 unsuccessful attempts, how I took it. When he needed to enter my restoration room, he knocked. When he disagreed with me, he argued without turning disagreement into an order. Some evenings, we sat across from each other in the library and spoke about our mothers. Other evenings, we said almost nothing. Trust did not return in a single dramatic moment. It returned in small pieces, each one offered and accepted without demand. Nathan accepted responsibility, returned the money he still controlled, and agreed to cooperate fully. Richard Kane was charged in connection with financial fraud, obstruction, and conspiracy. The Cross Foundation began an independent public audit. At the scheduled council review, the members removed the household alliance clause Kane had attempted to use against Adrian. Victoria supported the change. She did not apologize to me, but she voted before anyone else, which was probably the closest she came. On the morning the 21 days ended, Adrian placed the torn agreement, the ring, and the restored music box on the table between us. The box played again. The melody was softer than I remembered, but it was complete. You are free of the covenant, he said. I was always free. I know that now. He did not ask me to stay. That was how I knew he had changed. I returned to my apartment in South Boston. The power worked. Mrs. Landry's game show rattled through the wall. The radiator clanked every 6 minutes. Ordinary life had never sounded so beautiful. 3 nights later, someone knocked 3 times. Adrian stood outside alone. No driver. No security detail filling the stairwell. No expensive box prepared by an attorney. Just a man holding a ring and waiting on the other side of my door. He did not step forward when I opened it. May I come in? He asked. I looked at the man who had once entered rooms as though permission belonged to weaker people. You may ask your question first. He took a breath. When there is no debt, no danger, and no role left to play, would you still choose me? I looked at the ring but did not take it. Only if choosing you never means losing myself. It will not. Only if you understand that love is not protection without consent. I understand. And only if we begin slowly, without contracts or promises either of us has earned yet. Adrian lowered the ring. Then slowly. I stepped aside. You may come in. He crossed the threshold without triumph. Not like a king entering territory. Like a man being trusted with a home. He had ruled his world by making people obey. But he won my heart the first time he stood outside my door and waited for permission.